God's love for you is greater than your condemnation towards yourself. And it's like I said, yeah, God's love for me is greater than this guilt, this shame. God's love, like, even if I don't love myself right now, or I'm not happy about what I've done, and it is true that I did that, like, God loves me more than this feeling. And it's like, as soon as I received that, and I said, yes, that's true. Like, it's like, it just, it just, that thing, that hard thing that was there, like this metal ball, it just transformed, like a light came out of it. And then I just couldn't even see any metal anymore. It just went from like this light, it was small and it just got big and then just took over, and it just filled my whole self.
I'm here today with Yandea, who in 2017 had a spiritual experience where she was escorted out of her body and told that she would experience what people would go through when they died. And then in January of 2024, Yandea experienced two near-death experiences after losing over 40% of her blood due to hemorrhaging. And she is here to share with us those experiences and the message that she received. Thank you so much for joining us today, Yandea. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Hi, thank you for having me. Yeah,
So
I'm excited to be here also.
good. And you've had quite a few experiences that you wanted to share with us. If you want to go ahead and start wherever you feel it's necessary.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I'll start with my very first experience, which wasn't a near-death experience, but basically in the winter of it was 2017, I had gone to sleep, and at some point in the night, someone, I didn't see a face. It was really just a presence. There wasn't even like a light or anything. It was just a presence was there and literally took my spirit outside of my body. Right now, I had already experienced that before, where I had been taken out of my body and brought and shown stuff, but this was very different because I was told that I was going to experience what people experience when they die. Right, so that had never happened before, this time. So I was taken out of my body, and then I was brought, like, there's no like location that I could say. It's like I was just going very fast through what felt like realms or dimensions. I don't know how I would know this, because there was no one was saying anything to me. It was just, I was just knowing that I was passing through. It just felt like I was going fast, and then I would pass through. It's just that's just literally, like, this is how it felt, like really fast and then just passing through. And it was all just dark, and I was just passing through. And then eventually, I mean, I got used to this feeling of just going fast and passing through. And then all of a sudden, I just hit, like, I mean, I hit something. I can't say hard. It didn't feel hard. It felt like I got stuck, right? So it's like I didn't have a physical body, but it felt like every part of me like went through this thing. You know what? If you could think of, if you've ever been in a car accident and you've gotten hit from the back, like your whole body flings forward, but the seatbelt like keeps you, plastered to your seat. That's what it felt like. It felt like I got like almost like whiplash. Like I was going so fast, and then something right here held me back from going through. And I was like, what is that? Like, why can't I pass through? And I tried again, tried to go through. And all this time, this being was with me, but not saying anything. It was just letting me experience this thing, whatever I was experiencing. And then eventually I looked down, like, to see what's here. And I looked down, and I it it's funny because it seemed like it was a hard, I say it was like a metal ball, but I didn't see a metal ball. It's just the hardness of this thing is what I would perceive as a metal ball. It was something so hard that it couldn't pass through. And when I looked at, to see like, what is this that I can't get through? It was like an invisible wall. As far as I could look, it was just all of a sudden this wall was there. It was never, ever like, I never perceived it before until that moment. And so I looked down into my chest again, and the thing that was there, I could understand exactly what it was, and it was judgment, right? So when I looked into it, I had all the feelings of it. So I knew it was judgment. I knew where it had stemmed from. And it was basically, without getting into all the details of my little relationship drama that I had at the time, but I had broken up with someone, and while I had broken up with them, I had seen somebody else. And then when we got back together, they asked me, like, were you seeing anybody? And I said nope. And we had a rule that whatever we do when we're not together, it's our business, right? So in my mind, I had said, I don't have to tell you who I was seeing. Like, we're not even together, that's my business. So I knew that I wasn't doing anything wrong because I was keeping to our rule. But at the same time, that thought was in my mind, like, if this if you were on his side, would you have wanted him to answer honestly? And that bothered me. I was like, yes, I would. And so even though we went on and we started dating again or whatever, it was like I I was bothered by this constantly, like, you lied. And I'm like, well, I didn't lie. This is our rule, but it was like within my heart, and this bothered me for a long time, right? And so that's all that was there. Literally, there was nothing else to do with any other thing but just that judgment, because I knew within my heart that was wrong, you know? And that's why I believe so much in that commandment when it says, do to others as you would want them to do unto you. And I think, like, that's exactly what was happening within myself. I knew that I would not have wanted him to do that to me, and here I was doing that to him, regardless of whatever laws or rules that we had down. And so I had a moment of just being like stuck in that, knowing that, oh man, I knew I should have said something. I didn't. And I was just going, like, my mind started going, and I got all wrapped up in this condemnation. And the thing about it is that in this space, it's like the truth is like so much stronger. Like, here on earth, you could do something wrong and be like, put it in the back of your head. In this place, it's like all you're just surrounded by truth. So any little thing that's not truth is like absolutely not truth. Like, the contrast is very much, it's a lot greater, and so that judgment just kept growing and growing the more that I was realizing that it was so not the truth, right? And so eventually, yeah, I was just wrapped up in all this condemnation. I couldn't even, like, think of even anymore where I was. I just was thinking of this, like, guilt and the shame. Like, it just kept growing into more and more, you know, um, just low vibration, is what I would say. Well, it was just getting pulled into it. And that's when the presence who was with me took me out. And it's funny because when you think of it, like, I already had come out of my body, right? And I was in this spiritual body in this place, but then it's like I came out of my body again. It's like a part of me, like, it's like my it's like my consciousness had a body that was a spirit. You know what I mean? I'm trying to explain it. And some part of me, like my mind part, was taken out of that body that had this thing, inside of it, that couldn't pass through the wall, right? And I was placed into somebody else. I never knew there was anybody else there at all. I always thought it was just myself and this presence, right? And all of a sudden, I was placed inside of someone, and this person was in something that was like a bubble, not actually like, a soap and water bubble, but like maybe we would call it an auric field or something. Like, they were in something round, had light around it, right? And it was just floating, just what makes me think of bubble. But they were in this place, and I was placed into them. I was placed into that person. And when I was placed into them, I could feel everything they were feeling. I could hear all their thoughts. It was crazy. It was like I became like part of their consciousness. And I remember I looked and I saw many other bubbles with people in them, all experiencing the same thing that this person was experiencing. But I was seeing their thoughts. I would see like their life, like why they were feeling what they were feeling. I knew that they were right for feeling what they were feeling because they had done very bad things. And but then I was trying to tell them like, you could forgive yourself for this. Just ask for forgiveness, um and I was saying like, God loves you, it's okay, like, because I could tell that they were remorseful, but it's like they weren't going a step further. It's like they were at the place where they knew that what they did was wrong, but then they couldn't move past that what they did was wrong. And so I spent a long time trying to convince this person, and it's like they were just not hearing. Literally they were doing this, like the more I would speak, they would like, no, no, like going against what I'm trying to tell them, like it's okay, you could be forgiven and all of this, right? Then finally I just kind of gave up because I'm like, nothing I say is getting through to her, nothing I say is getting through to her. And she just doesn't want to hear that. She wants to be like in this place of like self-hating, like she started like hating everything. And then at that point is when I was taken out of her and placed back into myself. And at that point I had spent so long, what felt like so long, trying to convince her, like I already knew what I had to tell myself. So then I just told myself the same thing, like it's okay, like yes, you've done that, yes, you went against your own belief to not do to people what you would have them do to you. But God's love for you is greater than your condemnation towards yourself. And it's like I said, yeah, God's love for me is greater than this guilt, this shame. God's love, like even if I don't love myself right now, or I'm not happy about what I've done, and it is true that I did that, like God loves me more than this feeling. And it's like as soon as I received that and I said, yes, that's true, like it's like it just it just, that thing, that hard thing that was there, like this metal ball, it just transformed, like a light came out of it. And then I just couldn't even see any metal anymore. It just went from like this light, it was small and it just got big and then just took over, and it just filled my whole self. And as soon as I was filled with this light coming like from my chest, I was filled with it. It was like a vacuum. I just got sucked like through that wall, like, or that, that invisible wall, right? That I don't know if that's what it's called. I just call it that, right? But I was sucked through it, and it was like a magnet, like just pulling me like a vacuum. Like it just went straight through it. And as soon as I went through it, there was no more going forward. Like how I was traveling at first, I just went through it, and then I was on my way. Like it's like I was going now back into my body. So like everywhere that I had traveled, it's like now I was just going like backwards. You know what I mean? Like back into my body. And in that process, getting back into my body is when I was told that I have to share this. Like I have to share the importance of forgiveness to people, because there are people who are, and I think, I'm not telling you that this is every single person's experience. I was just told I'm going to experience what people experience when they die. So that's all I could say is what I was told, right? So I think that for me, I was saying, this must be what people have, these experiences that they're like burning in hell and stuff. And I'm like, this must be what they're feeling. They're probably coming out of their body, or it could be that they just have that experience of being stuck at the wall, and not because they were so, that place was, once my eyes opened to that one woman's experience, the whole place was filled with these bubbles of people in their own little like auric fields, just suffering, going over and over all the bad things they did, like no escape. They couldn't escape their own selves, right? And so that was the first one that I had. So I didn't actually die. I just, was taken and had that experience. And I started sharing about the importance of like forgiving yourself and accepting, and receiving the love of God. And just to say, like, I had learned about the love of God, ever since I was 12. When I got saved at 12, or that's a whole different story. But then since then, I think when that happened to me, I don't know, I can't do the math on it, but it was, I'm 41 now, so it was a long time ago. Right, to when in 2017 when that happened. So yeah, I think I was probably like close to 33 or something. So anyways, that was a while ago. And now in 2024, January that just passed, um, I I was I was pregnant and I ended up having a miscarriage and I was hemorrhaging. I went to the hospital and they didn't do due diligence in, you know, whatever they were supposed to do to make sure that I was well, and I was being sent home. And so pretty much I went to the washroom before leaving the hospital, and I started feeling like my hands, I couldn't feel my hands. They got cold. My feet felt cold. And this is why I was in the washroom. So I felt like this is weird. I can't feel my hands. I can't feel my feet. And I proceeded to like come out of the washroom, and my husband was waiting for me in the hallway. And that's when I collapsed into his arms and onto a chair. And that was January 15th, and the night of January 15th. So that was the first, I guess, the beginning of the near death experience where um, at that time I was in a place that was just total darkness. The feeling would be like I was under like a lake, like a pool, like some mass body of water. It felt like I was under that. And the reason I say water is because I could see something like waves, you know, like at the top, at the like when I looked above, there was like a place that had like light, and I could see like waves. It's almost like if you could think of yourself in the bottom of a lake on like a moonlit night, how you could maybe look up and see like where the moon is would be brighter, right? Well, everything was dark except that one spot. So I started going towards that spot, and like just with my mind, I was just like, I thought of going and I was going, and then I could see like what seemed to me as waves, and I could see my husband on the other side of it. And so I was trying to get out to him, but I couldn't. And I could see him looking into me, like looking directly in, like through this hole, and holding my jacket. Like I could see everything. I could also perceive, because there's only this area I could see through, everything else was dark. And I could tell that there was a male nurse over here that was coming towards me. I could tell other things that were happening, although I couldn't see it. It's like I couldn't see it with my physical eyes. Like I could see him, but I was knowing it. I was knowing, you know, what was happening around me, even though I couldn't see it. And and then I just got tired of trying to get through that barrier. And and because it really felt like he was in like another place, and I had to get through this wave to get to him, and I just couldn't. And then I just went back into the darkness. And then the next thing I know, I was hearing the nurse saying like, oh, are you with us now, are you coming back to us? She was saying stuff like that, and then my eyes was like opening. It felt like, actually, like it felt like I was waking up, you know, like when you wake up in the morning and you just kind of, that's the feeling. It just felt like I was waking up. And then they put me onto a stretcher and stuff, and then I was sent home, again without like any like examination and stuff, right? So when I got home, the bleeding just, I got home like 1 a.m. and the bleeding just continued. It got worse. And and then, sorry, just sometimes I get, you know, just kind of reliving it, you know. And then the bleeding got worse. And I told my husband, like, this is not, I've had a miscarriage before, I've had that before, this is not normal, you know. I mean, it was like so much, I'm not going to get graphic, but it was enough for any woman to know that this shouldn't be happening, you know, not for any reason. Like the amount of blood that was coming, the the hemorrhaging, it was just massive, right? And so um he said, let's move you into the bedroom, because I had come when I was just on the couch. He said, let's move you into the bedroom. And I was like, okay. And I just did like a little bit of a raise to like, okay, let's go. And I felt like all the darkness coming back. And I said, babe, it's happening again. You know, I think I'm gonna pass out. And then I did. So that was now on the 16th. And then so that's when the second one occurred, which is where most of the information came from, right? That one. And so there's a lot of things that happened there. I think I want to maybe touch on. um, I guess I could touch on the first thing that I experienced I went um, when I lost consciousness was seeing my life review, right? I never had in this experience, there was never any, not that I could remember, right? There was never any like physical like entity or anything. It was always just this force that I could know was with me. Like I was very well aware that I wasn't alone, and I knew that the person or whoever was with me, I knew like the places that I knew them. It's like it was familiar to me, right? And so I was in this place, which was familiar. I knew what was happening. I knew who was with me. And it's so funny because now if you say who was with you, I can't really tell you who was with me. But then, right? I can't give it a name. I mean, I would want to say, I would want to say most high, but it's so different, right? Because in other experiences I've seen like the great light, I've seen these things, but this time there was nothing. Like I couldn't tell you there was a light. I couldn't not there was just absolutely nothing other than a presence of whoever it was. I knew they were in control. That's just the feeling, right? And so and I knew I was safe. It was like regular and familiar. So they brought me to this place, and I remember this one thing too that stood out. I didn't see physical hands, but the things that were happening in front of me, like they were like with the life review, um, I saw from the time I came to Earth, like my birth, and I saw up until that moment. So I saw, it all went like this, like little like pieces of how do you say it? Like slides, like this very fast, like this in front of me, right? Like slides of light, but I could look at each slide and see my life happening, and it was going like this in front of me. So from my birth all the way. And just the motion of it made me feel like the way like someone just deals cards, like I'm doing like this with my hand. It felt like, so I didn't see hands, but all the motions are like things that you would do, with hands. So anyhow, and then everything I was being shown was like all this good stuff that I was doing, just very great things, like doing readings for people, helping people, doing this and that, and spending time with my children. It's like just all these like beautiful things. So I was getting this feeling of like, wow, like my life, just so great and all of that. And then all of a sudden, these hands, right? It's like this energy just came and just like exactly how I'm doing with my hands. It just came like this and gathered all of these, like all of the slides that were in front of me, just gathered it, and it just went like that. Like they all came together in front of me, and then it just went into being nothing. And the thing is, like, there's an energy to everything happening. So you're understanding. So I felt like this is all coming together now to be like, wait, like let's gather it all up and see what this is. That's the feeling I had. And I was waiting for it, and then it all just disappeared. So I was like, this is not, this isn't good, right? This is like nothing. I was thinking all of these things aren't like weighing. And then I had a thought, and the thought I had was even being a vegetarian, like even because that was my choice. And what I had realized is like everything that I was being shown are things that I would say like, oh, like God did this to me, or like, because for example, if I get a word of wisdom or knowledge or something for somebody, or like a direction from spirit, I don't consider that like me. It's just the goodness of God using my vessel to help somebody. So that's not me. I can't take any credit for that. But when it came to being a vegetarian, I did take credit for that, right? Because it's like, well, I love food and I understand what's happening with animals. And so I'm going to not eat any animals. And that's me. That's my sacrifice. I'm doing this, So it was like my goodness, right? And that came into my mind like, okay, I understand everything else, but come on, nothing for this, right? And so the very minute I had that thought, my mind, it's like almost like my higher mind stepped in and said, exactly, like, this is why. Like, look at the fact that you have this thought about this. is showing you that it wasn't right, you know, like you were doing it possibly for the wrong reason. And so somewhere along my journey of choosing to not eat animals for the right reason, it switched into becoming like a religion. You understand? It switched from I'm not going to eat animals because I don't think it's you know the best way to go about whatever the suffering, this that, and it became almost like forgetting why I'm not doing it, even if you could keep saying it, to like, okay, good, I've done my part, I don't eat animals, so check mark here, and you know I'm going to continue on with life. And it's like every day all you're just contributing is I'm not eating animals, right? And I think over, because I had been at that time a vegetarian for like 12 years, my entire, like all my children too. So I think at that point it had just become like a religion. Like I just don't eat meat, right? And like maybe the heart of the reason why I wasn't eating meat had you know, it had shifted. And it happens to all of us, right? We start something for the right reason, and then we just you know, I don't know, after a while, we just start doing it. Even, you know, like in the beginning, they teach you how to pray. And so you're praying for the right reason. And then now it just becomes like, okay, get up, pray. It's routine. You know what I mean? And then when something becomes routine, you lose the spirit of it, you lose the heart of it. Right. And so, anyways, I was shown that. And so then after that, so what's happening was that I was going in and out, in and out. So then I came back out, and when I came back out after that, I saw my husband was on the phone with 911 to try to get the ambulance to come. And then I went back in. So I was just having these moments of coming back to this realm, and then I would go back. So this was happening continually. And then another time when I went back in, it was I was in the same place, but now it was something different was happening. I was shown like when, so I went back in. When I went back in, there were already people there, and the people were just like as far as I could see, or I guess maybe focus on, because the place is vast. So as far as I guess I could see, there were people there, and I had known all of them. There were people from, I mean, every interaction, the cashier, like the mailman, a neighbor, teachers, every single person that I had ever interacted with from my birth to that time, everybody was there. And they were organized in the fashion of like lesser lights, you know, like dimmer lights to brighter lights. So the dimmer lights were far away from me, and then the brightest lights were closest to me. So my husband and my 5 children were right in front, and they were bright, bright. And then everybody else was kind of organized like that, going back. And and I remember when I was looking at, you know, at the light, because I knew who they were, but they really were in like a light form. It's not like I was seeing like their physical body standing in front of me, right? It was just the light. It's like everybody's light has a, I don't know how, it's like even if you see 2 or 3 lights, the lights may all look bright, but it's like they all have their own encoding. You understand? Like you could know somebody, you know, specifically by their light, right? And so I could see that light, and I knew that light was my husband. I knew that light was like this bright light, this is my children, right? And then so the more I like looked at this light, I could tell that this light was love, right? And I knew that the people who were furthest from me with the dimmer lights were people that I didn't love as much. So now the organization, right, of the lights were the brightest lights were the greatest love, and the lesser lights were the least love, and they were furthest from me. And so once I kind of grasped that, and I grasped also, you know, that love is, at that moment, it's like, because we were taught like love is an emotion, it's a feeling, but I'm like, no, love is light. Like love is an actual tangible thing. And then the more I looked into like the love or the light, it was like I was understanding what it was, and I understood that it's the fabric of all things. Like everything is created by love. It's actually the essence of everything. And so I understood like how to like it could be increased, you know, it could be multiplied, it could be turned, made brighter, for lack of better words, but it could be made brighter. And then so I remember I remember seeing like, because I had that thought inside myself too, like how, well, I, without getting into all the details of certain people, you know, who were there, my parents and all of this type of stuff. Certain people are not, as like I said, it was only my husband and my children that were that bright. And so obviously there were some people who I thought would have been closer to me and they weren't, because the quality of love. And I understood that it's the presence, right? It's the presence, like love on its own, it's not just the emotion, it's giving your presence is what makes love love. You understand? It's like, it's kind of a little bit difficult to explain, but if you, so the example I will give you is this one. Like I saw one time like my son talking to me and like showing me something, and I was like, yeah, yeah, you know, like, oh, it's nice, very good, very good. But my mind was thinking about, you know, what I have to do next, and you know, keep your mind on this thing, don't forget, because he's distracting you, right? So I was separated in my attention, you know. And so this ability to love somebody, it comes from giving of your essence, because love is not an emotion. It's like we are spirit, right? We are consciousness. So you grow love by giving of yourself to people and to things, like really giving your full self. So that would mean your sight, your smell, like all your senses, as much as you can give, you give. And so that's like your full attention. And then I understood that. And as soon as I grasped that, like I started, they stayed, but I started going back. I started moving backwards. And it felt like there's no time there, but it felt like it was like an 8 years, an 8 year space of time. And then they started getting dimmer. And it wasn't, the dimness wasn't because I was going back. I knew that very clearly. The dimness was because they were forgetting me. It's like the love was like going, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't as strong as it could be. So then it was fading. And I knew that like after 8 years, um, they wouldn't be able to feel me. They would still remember me, but they wouldn't be able to feel me. Um, and that's what I'm talking about. Like love is almost like a tangible thing. It's like it's real, you know, it's not just an emotion. And so now that I knew how to make it brighter and how to make it more, you know, last longer, I wanted to go back. I wanted to go back to earth, and I wanted to do that. You know, I wanted to do that with my children and my husband, especially because that was if I ever felt any type of fear, it was in that moment. I don't even want to call it fear. It was just a deep heartbreak, you know, to know that like, oh my gosh, after 8 years, they won't be able to feel me. They won't be able to feel my presence because we've made love, you know. Me sharing my presence with them here on earth has created this light that we share. And after this is going to wane, this is going to start waning, like after 8 years, and eventually they'll remember me and know me in their mind, but they won't feel me. And that was just such uh like, nah, can't have that, I can't. And I started begging God. I started begging, like, okay, I get it, I understand, like, just please give me a try. Just please, I will go back. I will love, like, I will do it. Like, now I know. It was just like, please. And then I came back into my body again. And then I said to my husband, who was still on the phone with the emergency people. And I remember feeling like I'm gonna die. Like this is really it, because I'm holding on, right? I'm going back and forth, but I could feel myself trying to hold into my body also. And I'm like, you're still on the phone with these people. Like I am, I cannot hold on anymore, you know? And I said to him, I said, please pray with me. Please pray that I will stay and get that chance to, you know, just to like be with you guys. And I'm like, I don't want to leave yet. Like pray. And then he just said, I remember him agreeing to it, but then I went back into, you know, what, the darkness. And then the next thing I knew, I was back into my body and the paramedics were here. So that's that is the most important things I think that I would want to share. A lot of the other things are more like personal, to me. But as far as like over the next, like once that happened, I went back to the hospital. There was a great doctor who helped me and I stopped bleeding. And then I had lost like 40% of blood at that time. And then so the next 2 weeks after that was just integrating like all the information I had from being in that place. See, the thing is that things don't even need to be said to you when you're there because you know it. Like here, you don't know it, but when you're there, you know it. So the longer you spend in that realm, you're like you have your consciousness, right? So you're knowing things, you're knowing a lot of things. And then like things you thought here, it's just clear, the clarity you get when you're there. And then so now when you come back into your body, I feel like, I can't say for everybody, but for me it took like 2 weeks before my spirit anchored in, like stayed. I was continually not going back to that place, but just floaty, like continually like in and out, and trying to want to be here because I wanted to be here for the children, but I didn't want to be here because the atmosphere, like it was not a nice place. And I knew it. It was very clear to me. Truth, false, like extremely clear. And I did not want to be, and love, the contrast. Like I know what love is. And now I'm here. And it's like everything was bothering me. Social media was bothering me. People talking to me was bothering me because now I could tell, like, I could tell what I'm getting, right? Like someone talking to me and I could tell like their mind is over here or there or there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm just like, don't, please, I don't need it. I don't need fake love. I don't need the, because now right? It's like now when you know what it is, why would you want to give something fake and then why receive something fake? So that was tough. And yeah, it took about 2 weeks for me to kind of put everything into perspective and to want to um like interact with the world. Honestly, I know it sounds weird, but I wouldn't have mind just being in my house with my husband and my children and locking everybody else off because it was so difficult, to deal with what felt like such falsehood, you know? Yeah. So the contrast is love and truth on one side, and then you come into this realm and it's just like a form of love that's not love. And there's so many people talking about truth and it's not even true, so that's tough. But yeah, I'm just here now and sharing, as much as I can about love, and I'm doing my best to love so I have no regrets, when I do actually go for good.
And in your first experience in 2017, it's kind of like, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, like you found out that forgiving yourself was more important than the actual experience, like the thing that you did that you wouldn't forgive yourself for. That wasn't important. Forgiving yourself was important. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me tell you, this is so funny. Like now when I think back to it, right? When I opened my eyes after that experience, my partner at the time, he was beside me and I woke him up. I said, wake up, wake up. And I'm like, and he's like, what happened? And I'm like, so when I said, when we weren't together, I was talking to this person and like, and I was just laughing and I was so happy. And he was like, what? And then I was saying, yeah, I didn't tell you because, because we have our rule and this and that. But I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, oh my gosh, but it doesn't matter. God forgives me. I forgive me. And I was just like so happy, and I remember he was looking at me like as if I was crazy. But that thing that was so hard for me to say to him, after that experience, I literally woke him up out of I woke him up to say to him, like, this is what I didn't care. I was like, bro, I don't care. You want to get mad and leave? I don't even care. I am like, my heart is free. I was so happy. So definitely the forgiveness trumped anything, you know Yeah, the freedom that your heart and your soul feels to not be bogged down by condemnation, guilt, and shame. It is worth, attaining. Yeah, 100%.
So the love, it's not just about between you and others, it's for yourself as well. You have to love yourself unconditionally as
You
well as
have to.
others.
Yeah, you have
I
to.
love that.
Yeah, I always like I put it this way. We have commandments, or like not, well, there are commandments, right, that say like you have to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself. But how do you know how to love your neighbor as yourself? See, if you don't love yourself, what is your standard? If I treat myself like trash and I'm to love my neighbor as I love myself, that means it's okay to treat my neighbor as trash, right? But if I treat myself good, then that means I have to treat my neighbor good. So if you don't want to be treated in a bad way, or if you want to be treated in a good way, then you have to treat others in a good way. Like there's just no way that it just, and then this is the whole thing, because that's when you do transition, it's this type of stuff that you will be faced in with the truth of everything, and you will see yourself. And that's why people are experiencing this type of hellish thing, because then they're going to see that they were selfish, they're going to see that they were hypocrites, they were going to see that they were self-righteous, they're going to see all these things about themselves. So we should not separate the love of God, the love of self, the love of others. Like we shouldn't. And it has to start with loving yourself, because if you're hard on yourself, then you're going to be hard on other people. If you think that this is how God is towards you, then you're going to be like that towards yourself. You're going to be like that towards other people. You can't separate. And it's funny because the beginning of that says, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. And that's how that actually starts. So what is that? It's actually that word one there deals with unity. So what are we actually saying, right? There can't be a difference with the heart, mind, and soul. There can't be a difference with God, me, and another person, right? So that, and it even reminds me of, there's a place where Yeshua says to people like, you didn't feed me, you didn't come to visit me, when I was in these, you didn't clothe me. And they're like, how did we not clothe you? How did we not feed you? It's like, because whatever you do to one of these, you do to me, right? It's this idea of, you never know uh when God is standing in front of you, in the form of your neighbor, in the form of your child, in the form of your enemy. You don't know. You see what I'm saying? And if somebody is alive and living with the breath of life, then they have a spark of God within them. And even if it's just for honoring the life of God within that person, then love, you know? So that's kind of, yeah, I can't separate. I can't separate it.
I think that's such an important message because so many people hold on to grief and sorrow and guilt. Guilt is a big one for the
And
mistakes that
shame.
they've made. Shame, exactly.
Yeah,
And we've got to let those things go
yeah,
in order to be who we are
yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, if you don't release yourself from those things, then that means that everybody else, how are you going to judge them? And remember, it says, "Judge not,
Mhm.
lest ye be judged." So it has to, you have to actually, the message, like I've talked about this before, and some people, who are Christians, they misunderstand what I'm saying. And they think I'm saying that you could forgive yourself without involving God, or, Yeshua, or whatever. And I'm like, how did I get to this place of knowing love? How did I get to this place? It had to have been demonstrated by somebody. It had to have, I had to have read it, heard it, believed it, experienced it, something. They don't ask the right questions. Like, how do you know about this love? How did you come to knowing about that God's love is greater, than your condemnation. Like, where did you get this message? You know, they don't ask that. It's just like, oh, if you're not saying Jesus, this message is of the devil. And I'm like, if I'm not saying Jesus, but demonstrating the message of Jesus, that should speak more volumes to you. Because there's a lot of people who say Jesus and they don't demonstrate. They do many terrible things holding that name. So we have to look at like actually like following the message and not just, you know, the messenger.
And so after your experience, how have you changed? Have you changed the way that you live your life?
It really, because of knowing what love is, like I've read the Bible before and stuff like that, but like a lot of scriptures would come to my mind, you know, like that 2 week period I was telling you about. After, like a lot of scriptures were coming to my mind and I was like, oh my gosh, that's what it means. Oh my gosh, that's what it means. Like I literally think it's impossible to understand what Yeshua or Jesus is saying in the Bible if you don't understand love, because everything being said is coming from that place of love. So if you don't have that as an understanding, like you're gonna read things like there's a scripture that talks about like the letter killeth, but the spirit gives life. If you're trying to read spiritual words, right, or something said by the spirit with a carnal mind, you're gonna miss it, you know, because this love is spirit, love is life. You know, so yeah, definitely now my the whole way I feel like the things I prioritize in my life are different. um like I said, like if my children had to come to me and ask me for something, it's like if I'm working on something, unless it's an emergency, you're gonna wait, because whatever I'm doing, it's purposeful. I'm giving it my full attention so I could give it myself, it could last, you know. And then I'm gonna deal with you, or I would put that aside. But there's no more splitting attention, you know, between this and that. It's either I'm dealing with one thing at a time, and people think it can't be done. It honestly 100% can be done. It's just that it will force you to prioritize things. That's what it's going to do. It's going to force you to be like, this is not Instagram, whatever, like pause the YouTube video, turn off Netflix. Like, this is not important. There's a pause button on these things. Things that you could pause are not important. If you could pause it, it's not important. The things that you can't pause, like living beings, you know, important. So it really puts things in perspective. um Everything I do, like now, like with my clients and all the work I did before, all the spiritual work I did before, everything has improved because of love. Honestly, like love is the key. You know, now that I know what love is and I know how to um bring myself into that presence, everything I do is way more powerful because it's coming from a better place.
Did you bring anything back with you where you can still access that realm, such as in meditation or in deep thought or even spiritual gifts?
Yeah. It's funny that you would say that, because so remember I told you like where I was able to like feel the quality of the love, right? So there were times before this experience where just randomly I would be talking to people or doing a meditation or whatever, and I would get like messages from people who had transitioned, right? And I know that seems very weird and whatever, but it would happen, and very specific messages. And I would be like, okay, well, this is what I'm getting. And I would tell the person, and then it would be always be this beautiful release of guilt, shame, different things that they were holding on to, not allowing them to progress in their life. And then that would be like over, and then you know, whoever it was, a mom or husband or whatever, would leave, and then that was that. So while I was in this experience, this near death experience, I remember when I was feeling the love and saying like, oh my gosh, it's not just an emotion, it's an actual real tangible like thing, it's a real thing. I remember saying also to myself that this is what I also feel when I'm doing that, like communication between the people who transition and the people who are here. This is the same thing that I feel. I never would have called it before love, you know, but being in the other, on the other side, I'm like, this is the same thing that I've been feeling and, like, for lack of better words, tapping into, right? And so knowing that is what even caused me to want to come back here and to make the love even stronger with my children and my husband, because I'm like, we can't be not feeling each other after 8 years. I want to be able to still, you know have my presence with you, my essence with you in some way. And so now that I'm back here, I've had quite a few um, like clients reaching out to me for something totally different, and like, let's say, relationship or whatever the case is. And then, because I'm sitting in that place now with clients of just, like, not listening with my mind, but I'm like listening with my heart, like I'm coming back into that giving full presence, giving them my love. Now I'm in that flow, and yeah, I get messages for them from the other side. And like I said, sometimes that's not even what they've come to me for, but then it ends up being like, I could tell you so many stories, but it ends up being exactly what had to happen, because that whole relationship wasn't working because of an issue with the mom, and the mom would be saying, whatever. So there's like, it's forced me to say, regardless of what people are going to judge about communing with people on the other side and bringing messages, there's a lot. I understand. I've been there. I've read the Bible. I've read stuff. I know that it seems like something that's not good based on texts and so on. But what I know is, I know what the love of God feels like. I do. Absolutely. I know what the love of God feels like. I know what it feels like when you're in that same love and you're communicating with somebody. And what I know is that nothing evil or wicked can replicate that love. You can't. It's absolutely impossible. So I will take my chances, and I will continue to allow for that love to dictate my life, because it's worth it. For me, it's worth it. I would live my whole life in this love, and I don't have to wait until I go to the other side to experience it.
If my viewers wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you?
You could reach out to me through my website, which is iamabama.com. Also, I'm on YouTube, have a YouTube channel where I try to just, share whatever spirit puts on my heart to share. And that is Yandea DMS Official.
Yandea, this was amazing for me to spend some time with you and learn about your experience. And I want to just thank you again for sharing it. It means so much to me, and I know it means a lot to others as well.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near-death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.